Ding dong, hello folks. I'm gonna stand up for just a second here and fix something, but we'll get started in just a minute. Hopefully, the sound of my computer isn't so dreadfully loud, but I do kind of expect it to be. Now, I'm not sure how many people are going to be joining us today, but, like it says in the stream title, more Slime Rancher 2. I love this game. This time I'm going to play it out. I usually played Slime Rancher 1, which is with a podcast in the background. Not the Adventure Zone, no, unfortunately. We'll be playing it with, Welcome to Night Vale. Starting where we left off on stream, which was episode 6. And I'll be pulling that up just right here in a moment. If I can find it. Episode 6, The Drawbridge. And I'll start this up. There we go. Oh, it's loading. I'll hit play. Well, actually, probably... I'm thinking about it. Oh, I didn't think this through. Alright, we're gonna turn this up. Watch, it's gonna clash with my sound.
Did you know that we make other podcasts besides Night Vale? Sure we do. Love this show? Good Morning Night Vale features cast members Meg Bashwinner, Hal Lublin, and Symphony Sanders, listening to and discussing every episode of Night Vale. Tag along as they talk theories, behind-the-scenes secrets, and a lot of stuff about food. It's mostly a food show. Then there is Within the Wires, found audio from another universe. This is a beautiful and meticulously crafted show by my Night Vale co-writer Jeffrey Craner and the great New Zealand-born, now in London, author Janina Matthewson. There is Random Number Generator Horror Podcast, in which Jeffrey and Night Vale's own Cecil Baldwin watch and discuss a randomly chosen horror movie every week. And my own show, Our Play Gear, which, okay, I have not been good about updating much anymore, but it's a show that I use to document the last 2 years of our lives using your phone calls to paint a picture of grocery store workers and high school students and worried parents and people taking aimless walks on long afternoons. Plus, all of our shows whose entire run is available right now, like the thriller Alice Isn't Dead, the conversations about art and life on I Only Listen to the Mountain Goats, the gay noir fantasia of Dream Boy, and so much more. See the complete catalog and subscribe at nightvalepresents.com.
Welcome to Night Vale is brought to you by Progressive. Are you thinking more about how to tighten up your budget these days? Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available available in all states and situations.
Rabbits are not what they seem to be. Welcome to Night Vale.
There we go. Sweet. Alright, all that blue out of the way. Speaking of rabbits, 2-rim shot.
We've had some power outages reported throughout Night Vale in the last couple of hours. If you're experiencing one, well then you can't hear me, can you? The Night Vale Municipal Utility Department said that they are still working to determine the cause of the outages, which are roving back and forth across town in a continuous motion like a great pacing beast. Those whose neighborhoods have been hit by the outages reported the shriek of hawks overhead, and that when the lights came back on, they felt that perhaps they were different people, their memories and identities the same as always, but suddenly felt like costumes that didn't fit exactly, as though it all were actually brand new to them, as though they had been switched out with someone who was exactly like them, as though all that was familiar would ever after be strange. Keep some flashlights with spare batteries and a childhood photo album by you tonight, just in case. The revitalization of the Old Town Drawbridge experienced another setback this week as engineers determined that the furniture upholstery used to construct the bridge towers soaks up water and creates an unstable foundation. This week's collapse was the third in as many months. Construction crews have tried building the bridge tower base supports from corrugated cardboard, non-dairy creamer, and ceramic bowls. Nothing has worked. Engineers are asking for help in determining how proper bridge towers are made. If you have any tips, please write them on notebook paper and mail them to Bridge Magic, LLC, P.O. Box 616. Do not use cursive or long words. Clearly labeled drawings are preferred. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of year again. Time for our annual pledge drive. Sorry to have to do this, but, you know, Night Vale has a lot of community-supported radio, and the thing about community-supported radio, it's supported by listeners like you, as well as Guatemala and some Teamsters who are sometimes just too generous. Any amount you can give will help us continue our community programming. $1 or $2 or even plasma. Take WZZZ, our local numbers station, broadcasting from that strange and tall antenna built out back of the abandoned gas station on Oxford Street. Did you know that it broadcasts a monotone female voice reading out seemingly random numbers interspersed with chimes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? As you can imagine, that kind of work doesn't bring in a lot of money, unless it does. To be honest, here at Night Vale Radio, we don't know exactly what that station is for or what master it is serving. But I do know that it is a vital part of this community and we should pitch in to help it. We welcome your support. Give us a call. We don't have a number, just whisper Forsaken Algonquinia into your phone receiver, and Angels or Facebook or something will deliver us an appropriate contribution from your bank account. More on the drawbridge debacle. It was turmoil in city headquarters this morning. Following this latest in a long line of municipal failures, the city council has come under fire from concerned citizens for wasting taxpayer money on inefficient services that go over budget and over schedule. One critic, who wished to remain anonymous, said, "We don't even have a river or bay in Night Vale. There would never be a boat to necessitate a drawbridge." He continued to, "You know what? Forget it. I can tell you right now that that was Steve Carlsberg who said that, and he is such a spoilsport, that Steve. Have you ever noticed how he never replaces his hubcaps? It's laziness. Pure and simple. Laziness. I just can't let him ruin our town by denying Night Vale a drawbridge when he can't even care for a tan Corolla. The Night Vale Daily Journal has announced that, due to spiraling printing costs, they will be replacing the print edition of the paper with a special new Imagination edition. Editor Leanne Hart explains, instead of confining our customers to the outdated modes of ink on paper, we are allowing them to choose the news that interests them by imagining whatever news they want. This will not only save costs, but will allow customers to experience the news as a full-color, full-motion experience, taking place in a mental world that is tailored to their needs. Subscription to this edition will be compulsory and automatic, and will cost a mere $60 a month. This Friday at Night Vale High's Memorial Stadium, it's the annual softball showdown between the Night Vale Fire Department and the Sheriff's Secret Police. Proceeds from the game will go to support development of nuclear weaponry for a strongly religious Indonesian militia that is looking to overthrow their heretical government, as well as to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So, even if you don't like softball, come on out and support a couple of great causes. Last year's game ended in a rout, as the Secret Police hit 3 home runs in the 8th and 9th innings. The firefighters claimed that there was some foul play involved, pun intended, dear listeners, as their entire bullpen was assassinated in the middle innings with blow darts. Those murders remain unsolved and completely uninvestigated. Our hearts go out to the families of the deceased relief pitchers. Rest in peace. It should be a fun one. Expect a real revenge-minded fire department to take the field on Friday. Tickets are only $10 or $5 if you bring enriched yellow cake uranium. Black helicopters will be mind-scanning the town on game day, hunting down those who do not attend. The first 500 fans receive surgically applied working gills.
I would want those.
Notice, there is no digital staticky hum coming from the dog park, Mayor Pamela Winchell announced today. The mayor stressed repeatedly in her 90-second impromptu press conference that there is no unbearable, soul-tearing sound that rips at the sinews of your very being coming from the dog park. Mayor Winchell continued with a plea for all Night Vale residents to understand that there could not possibly be a deeply coded message emanating from a small fenced-in patch of municipal grass and dirt. Citizens are not even supposed to be consciously aware of the dog park, so they could not possibly be receiving a menacing and unearthly voice instructing listeners to bring precious metals and toddlers to the dog park. Dog park, she repeated. That could never, ever be real, the mayor shouted, pounding the podium with her bleeding fists. There were no follow-up questions. And now, a word from our sponsors. And now, traffic. There's a stalled car on the northbound on-ramp to the Eastern Expressway just south of Route 800. Commuters should have little delays as Highway Patrol is fiercely denying this report. In fact, police representatives have just issued a statement claiming that there are no cars anywhere. And what are you doing talking about them? Talking silly lies, you silly people. There are no cars. What is this fiction? Oh, please. Do you seriously believe for a second? Wait. You thought that cars were real? The highway patrol continued. Oh, that is rich. All other roads seem clear. Expect delays, of course, at the drawbridge construction site because it is years away from being competently finished. Here are this week's horoscopes. Virgo, go see a movie today. It's a great escape, especially from all of this pollution and dangerous UV radiation. Say, is that mole new? Libra, your dreams will be filled with prophetic visions. Write them down. Hopefully, there are some lottery numbers or sports scores in there. Scorpio, curse you. Curse your family. Curse your children. And your children's children. Vile, vile Scorpio. Sagittarius, eat well today. You've earned it. And by it, I mean massive food allergies. And by earned, I mean acquired. I should proof this stuff before I read it out loud. Let's try that again. You've acquired massive food allergies. Yes, much cleaner. Eat well. Capricorn, those were not contact lenses you put in this morning. Best not think about this again. Aquarius, the white ball will be under the middle shell. Trust the stars. Invest all your money in this lucrative street game. Pisces, you've won a brand new car. Aries, you will feel a haunting sadness about times gone by. Today's smell is wheatgrass and toast. Taurus, today is your annual crime day. All Tauruses are exempt from laws today. Gemini, you will meet someone today who will have no effect on your life and who you will immediately forget. Retain hope for a possible future. Cancer, I've got to pay my phone bill and also get some more milk. That wasn't me talking. That is what the stars say today. Interpret it as you will. Leo, it's better that I don't read this aloud. Better that you not know.
Hi, Will. Turn down the audio for a moment. Hi, okay. There is no third-person mode in Slime Rancher, unfortunately. That would be cool. I'm currently playing on my controller. And thank you very much for the follow. And stretch. Alright, I can do that. Ah, shit. It's still early in the morning for my brain. But yeah, I'll turn it
And that nice epileptic couple who run the emergency services helicopter are just pleased as pleased can be about the news. Several petitions, however, have cropped up from neighborhood improvement organizations. Juanita Jefferson, head of one such organization, Night Vale or Nothing, said, "Trees, they are us." Jefferson then paused for several minutes without blinking and whispered again, "Trees," before collapsing into tears and loud moaning. Jefferson was then taken by helicopter to Night Vale General Hospital, where she is reportedly in stable condition. This morning, Jefferson's lawyer issued a statement saying, "My client fully recognizes the irony of this helicopter trip, but she stands by her earlier pronouncement, trees, trees, They are us. Meanwhile, I hear from trustworthy informants that there will be a pinkberry at the new strip mall. Delicious. This just in on Drawbridge Gate. The City Council said that, in response to this week's collapse, they will increase the project budget by $20 million over the next 14 years, the new timeline for the bridge. Money for these extra expenses will come from school lunch programs, a 65% hotel tax, and a $276 bridge toll, which will be discounted to $249 with Easy Pass. And now for a station editorial. Large, expensive projects are not uncommon in Night Vale. We are a patient but resilient little city. We have big dreams, sometimes scary, unforgettable dreams that repeat on the same date every year and are shared by every person in town, but we make those big dreams come true. Remember the clock tower? It took 8 years and $23 million to build, and despite its invisibility and constant teleportation, it is a lovely structure that keeps impeccable time. It's a classy signature for Night Vale's growing skyline. Unlike that hideous sports arena Desert Bluffs built last spring, Desert Bluffs can't do anything right. That's where Steve Carlsberg belongs. God, what a jerk.
Yeah, fuck Steve.
And now, the weather.
Big dude, but up. Hey, my boy set for up. Hey, Nederland met up. Yeah, hey, het is die oze doper. De bij de buurt en ik neem het over. De DIO en je weet de gozer. Ja, we kunnen hangen als ze mee gaan posten. Ben de meest gehate, de meest besproken rapper in de game, gast ik ben zo hard. Je zou denken dat ik steen was. Zie er zo goed uit, je zou denken dat ik gay was. Zo ziek, je zou denken dat ik hate zat. Maar dat heb ik niet, nee man, dat heb ik niet boy. Dus noem me John F, yeah, maar ze kennen die boy. En zitten rappers in de nood, je de bellen zijn naar mij. Heb je één moment, heb die rappers aan de lijn. Hele marketing, ja, ik hou ze aan de lijn. En het zijn geen honden, maar ik hou ze aan de lijn. Sonja bakken, ja, ik hou ze aan de lijn. Man, ik ben veel te ver, maar ze houden me niet bij. Ik ben weg. Hey, en niemand die kan tippen aan de swagger die ik heb. Hey, schatje, fuck met mij, maar nou die rappers die zijn nep. Hey, baby, kom me zien, laat me je zeggen wat ik heb. Hey, ik heb mijn broek laag, pet laag, yep, iedereen roept. Hey, stop.
Broek laag, pet laag, yep, iedereen roept.
Stop. Ze kijken me aan, zeggen dat moet het zijn. Ja, precies wat je had moeten zijn. En bij deze wil ik iedereen mijn excuses aanbieden. Ik had nooit zo'n fucking dope rapper moeten zijn. Maar het spijt me, homie, begrijp me. Als jij het niet doet, doe ik het voor een spijt. Ik ga veel te hard, schat je blijft bij me. Anders ben ik weg, ja, anders ben ik pleiten. Peace, what the boo is het? Wie is het? Fans in de game, die kunnen me niet missen. Rappers in de game, die kunnen me niet dissen. En als ik me niet vergis, dan kan ik me niet vergissen. Ik ben aan, ja, ik ben moeilijk. Ja, ik ben een bom en ik doe niet eens moeite. Baby, de voel me, maar raak me niet aan. Dus pak spullen, nigga, laat het me gaan. En daarna ben ik weg. Hey, en niemand die kan tippen aan de swagger die ik heb. Hey, schatje, fuck met mij, maar nou die rappers die zijn nep. Hey, baby, kom me zien, laat me je zeggen wat ik heb. Ik heb mijn broek laag, pet laag, ja, iedereen roept. Stop.
Broek laag, pet laag, ja, iedereen roept.
Stop.
Het is je boy Sef van de flinke naam.
Hey, Big Two stop die beat even. Want ik wil shinen zonder beat even. En ik wil dat je me ziet even. Dus sluit je ogen en geniet even. Maar genoeg over mij, laten we het hebben over mij. Laat me even rappen over mij. Want ik ben dol op gesprekken over mij. Dus ik vul tracks en coupletten over mij. Ik ben het einde, ik ben de toekomst. Ik geef die mannetjes wat die mannetjes toekomt. Ik pak die money als die money naar me toe komt. Money in mijn zakken, money voor de toekomst. Ik ben jaloers op die mannen, je moet me goed begrijpen. Ik zou ook naar mezelf willen kijken. Ja, als ik mezelf moet omschrijven, sorry, ik wil het woord swagger niet gebruiken. Ik ben weg.
Apparently, the sheriff's secret police agree with me about old Steve Carlsberg. Dear listeners, we just received a report from a reliable witness that 2 days ago, Steve was whisked into the back of a windowless van, only to reappear earlier this morning, wearing thick head bandages and eating styrofoam shaped like an ice cream cone. I want to take this moment to thank all of you out there for all of the generous donations you may or may not be aware that you just made. During this show, we have raised just a hair over $45,000, which includes a $45,000 donation from a certain anonymous world leader. I can't tell you who, let's just say, muchas gracias, el presidente, mano dura, cabeza y corazón. Thank you again for your involuntary support of community radio. We couldn't do it without the support of listeners like you, in conjunction with unethical contributions from nefarious organizations. And with that, I leave you alone with your thoughts, folks. Stay tuned next for Zydeco, Note by Note, a special 2-hour verbal description of what Zydeco music sounds like. Buenos noches, Night Vale. Good night.
Buenos noches. Alright, let's switch over to the next episode. This one is History Week.
Welcome to Night Vale is touring Europe right now. September 5 shows for the full list of over $700
Complete.
saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations.
It is almost complete. It is almost complete at last. Welcome to Night Vale. Hello there. As you well know, faithful listeners, it is Night Vale History Week, in which we all learn a bit about what made our bustling little town what it is. Or, as the official motto released by the City Council goes, poke about in the black recesses of the past until it devours our fragile present. In the interest of civic participation, Night Vale Community Radio will be pitching in with short lessons about some points of interest from our town's history, starting with 4000 BC. Archaeologists believe this is the earliest date of human settlement in Night Vale. Little remains of these ancient inhabitants, except a few cave paintings of their towns and their hunting practices, and of the dark shapes that would watch them in the distance. Inhuman, shimmering shapes that never came closer or farther away, but whose presence could be felt even with eyes shut tight, huddled in fur and the company of another human's naked skin. Or, so I'm extrapolating from the evidence. The cave paintings mainly resembled smudges now, after their original discoverer attempted to power wash them off the wall because he, on religious grounds, did not believe in the past. And now, the news. The Night Vale Tourism Board asks that whoever is telepathically assaulting the tourists, please stop. According to the NVTB Executive Director Madeleine Lafleur, there were 2 separate incidents in 1 week of entire tour buses suddenly shrieking in unbridled terror and trying to blind themselves using rolled-up, visitable Night Vale brochures, all to the utter confusion of the bus drivers. Lafleur added, "We just had those brochures printed." Lafleur claims that tourism accounts for tens of thousands of dollars annually for Night Vale, and the town prides itself on hospitality. She said if good-hearted families travel to Night Vale only to find their subconsciouses besieged with unforgettable revelations, horrors buried so deep as to be completely indescribable, revealing wholly unbearable new truths, then we certainly can't expect these people to return, let alone leave good Yelp ratings for local businesses. The city is asking residents for help in determining who or what is causing these psychological infractions. The tourism board is offering puppies as a reward for information on this case. Or, even if you don't have information, the city asks that you come get a puppy or 2 anyway. Seriously, downtown municipal offices are overrun with them. In the trees, walls, carpentry, the exterminators are completely stymied by this infestation. Please help. It has been several weeks since anyone in Night Vale has seen the Apache Tracker, that white guy who wears the inaccurate and horribly offensive Indian headdress everywhere. He has not been seen since he began investigating the great screaming heard at the post office and the words written in blood inside. Also, the entire structure of his house has vanished, and the lot where it stood is now a bucolic meadow that neighborhood kids will not ever enter, for reasons even they are unable to explain. I think I speak for everyone in the community when I say good riddance to that local embarrassment. He made the whole town look ignorant and racist. And now, let us continue with our Night Vale History Week special feature. The year 1745. The first white men arrive in Night Vale, which was not Night Vale then, but was rather just another part of a large and featureless desert. I think we can all agree, though, that even as large and featureless as the desert was, the part that would eventually become Desert Bluffs was still probably awful and drab in comparison to our part. In any case, the story goes that a party of explorers came to the area that would be Night Vale, looked around, and immediately left to go find somewhere with more water and maybe some trees. Then another 3 parties of explorers did the same thing. Then finally, one party of explorers all looked at each other, shrugged, and plopped down their stuff. And thus was a proud city born. And now, traffic. Crews from the Department of Public Safety will be repainting highway lane markers this week. The common white dashes and double yellow lane dividers will be replaced with colorful ceramic mosaics depicting disgruntled South American workers rising en masse against an abusive capitalist hegemony. The protective steel barriers along curves in the road will be taken down to make room for some really lovely and provocative butcher paper silhouettes of slavery-era self-mutilation, reflective of centuries of slow genocide and dehumanization by Western imperialists. Designed by contemporary art darling Kara Walker. Also, exits 15 to 17 along Route 800 will be closed for the next 2 Saturdays because of the biennial Lee Marvin Film Retrospective. So, please watch for working crews this weekend. Lower your speed, and don't forget to tip the DPS shift leaders. 20% of your current mileage is standard. Lack of tipping is the leading cause of sinkholes in the US. The year 1824. The first meeting of the Town Elder Council, predecessors to the City Council. Picture them. Crimson robes and soft meat crowns, as was traditional at the time, setting the groundwork for the splendor of today's Night Vale. A number of elements of our modern civic process were invented in that single 3-hour meeting, including the City Council membership, since unchanged, the lovably Byzantine tax system, as well as the system of brutal penalties for mistakes, and the official town song, chant, and moan. All records of this meeting were destroyed, and according to a note being passed to me just now, I am to report to City Hall for re-education effective tomorrow morning. Oh dear. The results of a recent survey of Night Vale residents came to light this week. The study found widespread dissatisfaction with our town's public library, and when considering the facts, it's easy to see why. The public computers for internet use are outdated and slow. The lending period of 14 days is not nearly long enough to read lengthier books given the busy schedules of all our lives. The fatality rate is also well above the national average for public libraries. The library Bloodstone Circle does not appear to have seen any maintenance or cleaning in some time. There are reports of a faceless specter moving about the biographies section, picking off lone browsers one by one. And that biographies section, by the way, is far too small and has been oddly curated, containing 33 copies of the official biography of Helen Hunt and no other books. From top to bottom, the public library is a disgrace to our fair city, and I can only hope our city council does something about that soon. Or I may find myself hoping that the faceless specter puts the library to the same mysterious violent end as its many victims. Night Vale High won the grudge match against the Desert Bluffs Vultures last night. Two-headed quarterback Michael Sandero credits the win to help from Angels. The Angels have made an adamant denial of any involvement whatsoever in the game. The school district ethics committee has announced that they will look into any possible angelic interference. Speaking of which, Night Vale High School is adding metal detectors, and parents and students alike are outraged. Several parents we talked to said that NVHS students have long been recipients of shadow government-issued Uzis and rifles, as well as tasers and armor-piercing munitions. The school board's decision to put up metal detectors, according to parents, impinges on the clandestine operations rights as a vast underground conspiracy of giant megacorporations and corrupt world leaders to bear arms via teenage paramilitary proxies. The school board countered that studies indicate that weapons distract from educators' ability to educate, and that students who bring firearms to classrooms are more likely to use firearms than students without firearms. The school board says that school shootings can only get in the way of a quality education. Well, at the risk of becoming too much a part of this story, dear listeners, might I say that the Night Vale School District is overstepping its bounds by telling us whether or not our children can be armed by undercover militants? Should it be a school's job to say, "No, child, you cannot have grenades or assault rifles in the classroom"? I think not. Beginning November 1st, all students at NVHS will enter through metal detectors. Any firearms or weaponry found will be confiscated and held in the counselor's office until after school, when the students can pick them up again. Seriously, listeners, what's next? Removing the line, "Praise the beams, praise, O ye knowing beams that guide our lives, our hearts, our souls. Praise, O highest, to ye all-powerful beams," from the Pledge of Allegiance? Let's return to another key moment in Night Vale history. The year 1943. As part of the war effort, Night Vale citizens dedicated themselves to chanting. The young, the old, men and women alike gathered around their bloodstones and chanted for the victory of the United States. While some credit must be given to the strategic planning of U.S. Command and to the brave fighting of American soldiers, most reputable scholars believe that Night Vale's chanting was the deciding factor in America's eventual victory over the Axis powers. The city council erected a 7-story monument in Grove Park saying so in that they have never suffered any sort of disastrous business failure, and the reportedly massive amounts of money lost on building waterfront facilities in a desert are fabrications of our collective consciousness. They recommend consulting your dream interpretation manuals to determine exactly what this Night Vale harbor vision could mean. They also said that if you happen to stumble on the waterfront buildings out in the desert exactly where you remembered them, and they seem completely real, standing as vacant and useless as the day they were built, that's because you are still hallucinating and should seek medical treatment immediately. Or have a member of the city council howl at you if you are of the olden faith and do not believe in modern medicine. For our final story in this week's featured look into the history of Night Vale, let's look at the very recent past. Yesterday. I had cereal for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, steak for dinner. Cars were driven, cars were not driven. The sun gave a great shout of light and then, after several hours of thought, quietly retracted the statement. Old woman Josie dug up a box in a shady corner of her yard and carried it, cradled in her arms like a baby or a delicate explosive, to another part of her yard where she buried it again. An unknown person did something that no one else saw, the nature and extent of which is impossible to determine, and the result of which will be lost in the chaotic chain of causation and consequence that is history. But most importantly, all of us here in Night Vale, in America, in the world, in the secret orbital bases, all of us got through another day. We passed the time from one end of 12 to the other without stopping once. Well done, us. Good job, people who experience time. Time experiencers, good job. And from this moment in history, the one that's happening right now, good night.
And now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. It can be tough to train your brain to stay in problem-solving mode when faced with a challenge in life. In therapy, I work regularly on my focus. Working alone from home, I sometimes can't find the best way to accomplish what I need, whether it's a deadline or just to decide on what to do for dinner. Therapy gives me someone to talk to, even about the smallest seeming issue, and I notice progress all the time. BetterHelp can help you find the right someone too. BetterHelp is customized. The Five-Eyed Bear by Jessica Haight works just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they will show you the coverage options that fit your budget. It's easy to start a quote, and you'll be able to find a rate that works for you. It's just one of the many ways you can save with Progressive. Get your quote today at Progressive.com and see why 4 out of 5 new auto customers recommend Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Silence is golden. Words are vibrations. Thoughts are magic. Welcome to Night Vale. Next Saturday is the big lottery drawing, listeners, right out in front of City Hall. And your community radio station has put together a few helpful tips for winning. The lottery is, of course, mandatory. But how can you get the best odds for drawing a blank white paper and not one of the purple pieces that means you'll be ceremoniously disemboweled and eaten by the wolves at the Night Vale petting zoo and makeshift carnival? I know to some of you young people, this lottery seems like a barbarous, outdated tradition, but if not for municipally planned citizen sacrifice each quarter, how else would we find satisfactory meats to feed those sad, scrawny animals? So, here now are the 3 I's of playing the lottery. I-1. Identify. Learn to sense colors. Purple has a grittier emotional aura than white. I-2. Ignite. Set fire to your home. While it's not true that wolves refuse to eat arsonists, it's a scientific fact that they're unable to detect the presence of one. I-3. Imitate. If you happen to draw a purple piece, impersonate someone who drew a white piece. You might be mistaken for a person who is colorblind. This, of course, will lead to months of painful color re-education at City Hall. But in most cultures, that's better than being eaten by wolves. Also, make sure to visit the Food Truck Festival, which will be downtown as part of the lottery festivities. Popular truck treats include Korean barbecue, vegetarian chili, and veal ice cream. Carlos, this station's favorite scientist, no offense to Dr. Dubinsky in the Night Vale Community College Chemistry Department, dropped by our broadcast location earlier this morning for a little chat. Sadly, dinner or weekend plans were not among the topics. However, Carlos did request that we ask listeners for anyone who saw a series of bright, colorful flickers coming from Radon Canyon this past weekend. These flickers would have also been accompanied by unintelligible noises, possibly some form of coded communication or signal jamming technique. Carlos suggested that there could be some very sinister forces at work here. He declined to be interviewed live, claiming only that he was scared for us. Scared for all of us in our strange town. Then he drove away quickly in his economical but attractively sporty hybrid coupe. If anyone out there knows anything about these otherworldly lights and sounds, please contact us immediately. Night Vale School Superintendent Nick Ford announced today that the Glow Cloud has joined the school board. The Glow Cloud passed over the entirety of Night Vale several weeks ago, dropping small and large animal carcasses, controlling our thoughts and tertiary muscle groups, and erasing every last recording device. We're still unsure the Glow Cloud even existed, as no one remembers it, nor has any digital record of it. If not for a few intrepid citizens who used old-fashioned pens and pencils to record the event in their diaries, we would have no remaining knowledge of that day. I, of course, can only thank those journal writers anonymously here on the air, as the Night Vale City Council long ago banned writing utensils, along with margarita glasses and barcode scanners. And I don't want to get my fellow reporters in any trouble with the sheriff's secret police. According to Superintendent Ford, the Glow Cloud's visit on that nearly forgotten day was simply an effort to find a nice neighborhood with good schools to raise a child. Now, what kind of progeny a powerful, formless cloud of noxious nightmares and spiritual destruction might produce, I dare not even speculate. But I do know one thing. That little cloud is going to get one heck of an education in the Night Vale School District. And isn't it heartening to hear that that little puff of despair's father or mother will serve on the school board? I mean, no matter how good the school, a student can only get out as much as the parents put in. We should all take such an impactful role in our children's scholastic lives. Especially you, Steve Carlsberg. You don't do anything except bring unacceptably dry scones to PTA meetings and take grammatically disastrous minutes on your shifts as meeting secretary. Get it together, Steve.
Steve.
Superintendent Ford offered the following statement of support for the newest school board member. All hail. Kneel for the glow cloud. Sacrifice. Pestilence. Sores. All hail the glow cloud. And now, traffic. This morning I saw a running man. He passed by my home, panting, limping, running desperate. I tried to stop him, but he would not meet my eye. This noontime, I saw a running man. He was coming down from the mountain holding a bag. His knees were bloody, and face covered in tears. This evening, I saw a running man. He was leaving town, legs pumping like a terrified heart. I think he was missing a hand. Is it that he wouldn't meet my eye, or that he had no eyes? Now I wish I could remember. There are many things I wish I could remember. This has been Traffic. New billboards have appeared all over town, bearing the image of a turkey sandwich and the single word harlot in large block letters. These billboards have caused some confusion, both due to their ambiguous message and to the fact that the entire structure of the billboards materialized overnight in places billboards are not usually constructed, such as the living rooms of local homes, the middle of busy thoroughfares, causing multiple car accidents, and, in one case, directly through a living dog, who has not appeared harmed by the addition to his body and has carried the entire billboard around town while going about his usual canine business. The Department of Health and Human Services recently claimed responsibility for the billboards, saying that they were part of a campaign to promote nutrition and healthy living among children. The original draft of the release also mentioned something about an offering to a long-dead god, but this was altered to fun, active lifestyles are important for kids of all ages in a subsequent addendum. We are receiving several phone calls from listeners and from the Parks Department that those flickering lights and unintelligible noises we reported on earlier were coming from the Pink Floyd Multimedia Laser Spectacular. I contacted Carlos about this, and he said that the situation is even worse than he imagined. He, again, did not mention weekend plans. A sports scandal has shook our quiet little town. The Night Vale Scorpions have faced multiple allegations of possible game tampering this football season. Representatives for the Desert Bluffs School District, speaking in unpleasant and high-pitched voices indicative of weakness of will and character, complained to the Regional Football and Traffic Code Authority that Night Vale quarterback Michael Sandero's recently grown second head counts as a 12th man on the field, thus invalidating the wins brought on by his also recently acquired superhuman agility and strength. The RFTCA said that they would look into these allegations with the utmost seriousness, along with their concurrent investigation into whether Night Vale's invisible crosswalk policy is actually a desperate bid to save town funds at the cost of pedestrian lives. Meanwhile, the school board is due to announce its decision in their ongoing hearings as to whether appealing to angels for a win constitutes illegal game tampering. Several angels agreed to testify at the hearings. However, their testimonials were cut short when it became apparent that the hearings were actually elaborate traps set up by the city council to finally capture the angels, whom the council does not recognize as actually existing. Fortunately, the angels easily escaped from their cages in a blaze of heavenly light, presumably returning to Old Woman Josie's house, out near the car lot, which has become something of an informal shelter for local angels. When asked about the controversy over his team's winning record, coach Nazar Al-Mujahid said, "Our boys are good boys. They're good boys at football. We win 'em with the boys. The football?" Then he smiled vacantly, waved at no one, and wandered off in the direction of the woods. More on this story as it develops. And now a word from our sponsor. Step into your nearest Subway restaurant today and try their new 6-inch mashed potato sub. Top it with a delicious assortment of fresh vegetables, like French fries and Nutella. They'll even toast or poach it for you. There are several Subway locations in Night Vale, all easily accessible through witchcraft and chanting. And between now and November 30th, buy 9 reverse colonics and get a free 40-ounce soda or freshly baked tobacco cookie. Subway. Devour your own empty heart. Exciting news about the abandoned mine shaft outside of town, where people who vote incorrectly are taken by the secret police. HBO On Demand will be made available to prisoners during their indefinite detention. All your favorite shows, such as The Wire, Sex
that I was told there was a king that always fell too high, and then he fell too low, and so he called all the wise men to the hall, and he begged them for a gift to end the rises and the falls. But here's the thing, they came back with a ring. It was simple and was plainly unbefitting of a king, engraved in black. Well, it had no front or back, but there were words around the band that said, just know this too shall pass.
Teddy Williams, over at the Desert Flower Bowling Alley and Arcade Fun Complex, has an update on the doorway into that vast underground city he found in the pin retrieval area of Lane 5. He says that every window of the city is now glowing both day and night. And he heard the shouts and footsteps of what sounded like an army marching upwards toward the world above. He also said that, given that nothing really matters now, bowling is half off, and each game comes with a free basket of wings. Nothing like those desert flower wings. Let me leave you with this, dear listeners. We lead frantic lives, filled with needs and responsibilities, but completely devoid of any actual purpose. I say, let's try to enjoy the simple things. Life should be like a basket of chicken wings, salty, full of fat and vinegar, and surrounded by celery you'll never actually eat, even when you're greedily sopping up the last viscous streaks of buffalo sauce from the wax paper with your spit-stained index finger. Yes, that is as life should be, Night Vale. Stay tuned next for a special live broadcast of the Night Vale Symphony Orchestra performing Eugene O'Neill's classic play, The Iceman Cometh. It is a good night, listeners. Good night.
And now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. It can be tough to train your brain to stay in problem-solving mode when faced with a challenge in life. In therapy, I work regularly on my focus. Working alone from home, I sometimes can't find the best way to accomplish what I need, whether it's a deadline or just to decide on what to do for dinner. Therapy gives me someone to talk to, even about the small...
But yeah, we'll be heading off. I'll probably come back on later in a few hours. Probably with the episodes 9 through episodes 15. And yeah, I'll see you then if you care to join me. Big ol' thank you to everyone who said hi, came by, dropped a phone. I hope to see you in the next stream. Again, should be later. Bye-bye.